Well, we're going live, and a thunderstorm is rolling into the frame. And last night I had some really interesting dreams. I kind of go to sleep when it gets dark, and I wake up when it gets light. So I get a good I go to bed around 8 um, in the evening, and I wake up. I wake up maybe 5 a.m. But usually I just roll over and see if you wake up after you've gone through your whole REM, your beta sleep, delta REM, and then you wake up and then you go back to sleep. You go back right back into REM and have dreams that you will remember very, very vividly. So I was telling a friend of mine back in the day, I never bought anything like at fancy stores or that they were the best kicks or whatever. No, I basically got things at yard sales, off the street. Or the thing I loved most was oh, flea markets. And the flea market that was nearby me was an interesting one in that at least half the people there were, really um, African, Middle Eastern, um, different people. This was in Florida near Stewart. And Stewart was, old wealth, right? I used to have friends who thought they were rich and lived in Jupiter Island. Oh, where the Bushes live here, now. That was the nouveau riche. And so um, the Hidden Hand was in Stewart big time, And so right off of US 1, there was this really great flea market that sold really great stuff. I mean, I bought boxes and boxes of these glasses, for like, a dozen for $2, And so I knew my eyes were going, so I bought every kind of focal length. And anyway, and there was this one guy, he was like, when Jack sold the cow for the beans, right? He was like that kind of guy. And he had the strangest stuff for sale. And he had these little pocket radios that had no knobs, just buttons. And so it searched the channels, right? Whatever was the strongest would come in. And, if you bought a box, they were like 80 cents a radio, with the earbuds, So I bought a box of those, and it had a flashlight on it, and it was really the bomb. Took two AAA batteries. Anyway, so this summer I've been going through all my old stuff, my old books and my old stuff, and I came across a box of those radios. And I said, wow. So I had one, and I had it stuck next to my bed. So when I go to sleep, and if I wake up and I don't just go back to sleep, I kind of stick the earbud in my ear and, you know, find a channel. And these little radios, late at night, sometime between 9 p.m. and 5 in the morning, when all of the electrostatic and hyperbolic energy fields kind of laid low because the sun sets, um, you can get the skip. Now, FM is kind of straight, AM is kind of skippy, shortwave is even skippier. And so you don't, these usually, back in the day when I was playing with shortwave, they'd have a knob, and it was like this thing going over a coil, and it was called a cat's whisker. So it was just a little ding ding. Well, these little radios are digital, so they just go to what's ever coming in. So when you stick it on AM and you're listening to the skip, it will skip everywhere. I mean, it'll come in, it'll be going through the whole, all the frequencies on AM, and when it's ever the strongest, bang, it'll hit that, and then it'll fade out, and then it'll to the next one. So last night I had it in my ear, and I was the other thing it does. If it goes through the AM thing, the whole thing, and doesn't find anything, it skips over to FM and then goes through that and finds something. So, I went to bed and it was at, you know, not too hot, it was like a little too hot. And I tried to just have a sheet and it was a little too cold. And so I wasn't like falling right to sleep. I tried to meditate and so I, put the earbud in and whoops, I kept the wrong earbud in here. Yeah, this is better. I put the earbud in and I started listening and then I went right off to sleep. Bang. And as I slept from about 11 p.m. until about 5 in the morning, as the thing would sweep through, I would listen to all these different things. And I was listening to BBC and I was listening to, just all kinds of crazy stuff. And all these ideas stuck in my head. So I was listening to BBC and they were talking about Africa. Now, Africa, we in America, we're like in such a bourgeois, materialistic bubble. We have no idea what's going on around the world. And so they were talking about South Africa and all the other nations around it. And South Africa right now is going through a real xenophobia. I mean, they're going through this, they're having their own Donald Trump moment, get it, save South Africa for the Africans. So they're, so South Africa is the center of the economic, it's like the America of Africa. And so they have a lot of people from all different nations there getting an education, starting businesses, doing all kinds of things. They have an unemployment rate of, South African citizens at around 27%. They have a unemployment rate of young South Africans, between the ages of 16 and 30 at a rate of about 70% without a job. And there are a lot of college guys there, well-educated, there is no work for them. So there's a lot of violence going on, and it's black on black. And what's truly interesting, and so everybody, this was all coming from Africa. I mean, everybody who was talking wasn't white, kind of snobby intellectuals. No, these were, black snobby intellectuals, but they were from all over Africa. And basically, they were talking about how Africa had been, conquered imperialistically by white Europeans of all different flavors, and for almost 300 years, and that xenophobia, that prejudice, that mindset was kind of genetically implanted into the Africans, because everybody wanted to be an Englishman or a Dutchman or whatever white person it was. And that scene from the movie about Gandhi was really great when Gandhi's in Africa, and he's an English trained barrister. He's wearing a $300 suit and he's on a train. He's in first class because he bought the ticket, and he's on the train, and the conductor looks at him and says, calls him a racial. And what's really interesting is how, like in England, like I used to live in London, and I loved London because it was like, especially in the 70s when I was there, it was like New York City, but more. It was more of a New York City than New York City. And it had every kind of flavor of human being you could think of. And the Pakistani, who is, every restaurant, every, convenience store, it was run by a Pakistani. And people would say the meanest, cruelest, terriblest things to these guys. And they looked white. They weren't black like Caribbean guys or African guys who were treated just like, because they were English and had been there a couple of generations. But the Pakistanis, they were like treated awfully terrible. Anyway, so there I am listening to all this stuff and I'm asleep, but it's kind of going into my head. And it's saying, forget about any place. Africa is where when things start to unwind, it's going to come out of there. And you have to realize that, the Middle East is in Africa. It's called North Africa. And there's this whole thing going on with India, and then it's these guys start talking about all over the place, right? And they're saying that it's not just Donald Trump, but you know the guy Modi in India, who's Hindu, is like being like Trump, and the guy who's burning the rainforests in Brazil, he's like Donald Trump, and the guy in the Philippines who's killed 70. I mean, he just walks up, he sends his police guy says to shoot people. He says, "Oh, they're really bad dudes, so we're just going to kill them." And these are all Downey's friends, Mr. Putin, and in China. And so there is this play going on, right? This movie, and it's basically run by the Khazarian mob. And the Khazarian mob was this crew of people who, just as the Holy Roman Empire was starting to, get going really good, and they were thinking about, going into the Middle East and stealing their Muslim brothers' stuff. And there was this thing called the Silk Road. The Khazarian nation kind of would take a caliphate and just take it over. And if you came through, they killed you and took your stuff, right? And they mostly just went for bling, jewels and gold and that kind of stuff. And the other stuff they would use, but it was like they were trailer trash people, right? So they would hit an area and suck it dry and then move to another area, suck it dry, move it to another area, suck it dry. Whereas these empires, not so much. They had, they wanted to be there forever. I mean, that was the Reich. The First Reich was Rome. Second Reich was the Holy Roman Empire. Third Reich was Germany. And there, and then, end of World War II, the German people, like they always are, in World War I, this happened to them, they were bombed into the Stone Age, right? But the Nazis won the war because the United States, passed this thing in 47 called the National Security Act, right? And they brought in, through Operation Paperclip, through 45 to 47, over 70,000 Nazi engineers, scientists, technicians, political thinkers, psychologists, and they basically sprinkled them through banking, government, education, and government. And within the dynamic of the National Security Act, that's where the CIA was started. That's where the NSA was started. That's where that whole alphabet city of entities, and they were all NASA. They were all NASA. The poster boy of NASA's, our favorite Nazi Jules Verne. What's his name? Who was a nice Nazi who made the V2, Werner von Braun, and he was no nice Nazi. They had a death camp. That was their labor camp. And if you didn't work hard enough, they put there, after the London guys bombed Palomundo, and they really didn't break anything up. They just kind of bombed it. They thought something was going on there, so they bombed it once. And the Germans had those guys, make underground factories, and like within a month, they moved everything underground. And as they were knocking out the V2s, the V1s, and the 262s, if they weren't working fast enough, they nailed them to the roof of the cave and alive, which was the motivation of the workforce. And that's where we're heading to right now. And so all of this stuff is going on. And here last night, hey, Aaron, love to see you, buddy. I'm dreaming about all this stuff, and I'm putting it into juxtaposition. And so I'm in the depths of, mountain poverty, but I'm surrounded by affluence. Johnson City, about 40 miles, 50 miles from me, is, that's what TSU is, a very affluent city, very, right? Big college, it's their flagship, and they really have, quite a amazing thing, and everything in that town, culturally, socially, is amazing, right? But it's stuck in this movie screen. They're living. They're not really living. They're not being themselves. They're not looking within. They're not trying to free themselves. They're just learning it from the textbook. Now I went in and said, hey, to all the people in charge and gave them things to read. I'll read you some of it later at another time. And they go, oh, wow, this is really cool. I said, so, why don't you just, give me, hire me as just a lecturer, not forget being a teacher. And they, oh, we'd love to, but, you would, go against the grain of pretty much everybody here. And we're, yes, we're a great university. Yes, we have some great programs. Yes, we're doing some really good work, but it's all within that frame of what, we can get funding for. And as you describe here, the hidden hand is not going to, I said, no, they'll love this. They'll, actually kids, come on, give me some more thumbs up here. Um, so anyway, so last night, my whole dreamscape was I was totally asleep but awake. And I was watching, and I have this earbud, and this little magic bean of a radio is zipping all over the planet. I'm getting things beamed from Europe and Canada and Mexico and all around America and all over the place, Ireland. And then I'm getting the BBC and I'm getting shortwave, and it's just all over the place, right? And this is off an 83-cent radio. Like I said, it's a magical mystery tour. And then this snapped up to this woman who was giving a lecture, and she's a political scientist, and she was giving the story about how the Republicans, the right, who are those guys? Project for a New America, Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, all of those guys, And they said, we need a new Pearl Harbor, 9/11, and we want to have a multi-state wars, theater wars, to have regime change of Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, North Korea, China, and a few others. And that's what we're doing, right? And it said it was going to take 100 years for this to happen, right? So, and Donnie just wants to get the boys out. He just wants a picture that he's doing a great job, right? So he can get reelected. And I would say if the Hidden Hand put Donnie in, right? Because they threaded that needle of the electoral college in such a way that Donnie won by about 180,000 people out of the 140 million that voted. So it's and I'm out here in all these different general stores, and I hear different people going on about this and the other thing, and they know me, and I say, oh, you're right. And I sit them down and we start talking, and I start talking to them like this. And after about 10 minutes, I said, well, I see what you're talking about. It's really, yeah. And I talk about it, and I said, it's not liberals, it's not conservatives, it's not Downey, it's a movie. We're in a movie, and it's time for us to write the script, to put out, it's where your life is. So then, after this girl kind of describes the whole thing, and she's talking about how the Democrats and liberals and the progressives, they just don't work hard enough. They're not as Machiavellian as, hey, beautiful, and hey, Thomas. And it's not that. It's, that we believe the movie screen we're in, but it's time for us to write our own movie screen. So, Aaron, buddy, Thomas, what's the movie you want to write? I want to, the alternative aesthetic based on service, our service to all our relations within the construct of love's co-creation. That's what I've been working on, right? Right. And none of this materialistic, political, social, dialectic, blah, 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 right? Because it's just a movie, and it's time for us to rewrite the script. People don't ask the right question. Yes, but while we're here in this sandbox, we have to replace it with something, buddy. That's why I'm looking at the alternative aesthetic, service to love's co-creation of all our relations. We have to step outside. Yeah, UFOs. I mean, they're there, boy. I've seen a lot of them. I've talked to a lot of them. And they're right next to you. I mean, you'll be at the diner. Did any of you guys ever watch that J.J. Abrams show, Fringe? It was probably about 10, 15 years ago. And all these really strange things happen. There's a young girl who's hug the system. Yes, exactly. You know, Ooh, I love you so much. So let's stop killing people. Why do people do any of those crazy things they do of wars and conflict and stealing whole nation states? It's because they're scared. They're fearful. You know, and and that was one of the things. So I started to dream about why are people fearful? Why are people stuck? Why can't people, put themselves in the other guy's shoes? And what I realized is that we live in a sociopathic um, culture. And you look at all of history, go back as far as you can, Mesopotamia, and it's always been run by a king or an emperor or somebody who felt that they were in charge because God put them there. I mean, the robber barons, they felt that they were there. You read the stuff that Rockefeller wrote, and he said that, you know, all the Christian race was put here because God wanted us to make a lot of money. And pretty much every president that has been put in has a bloodline from King John, the Plantagenet bloodline. You know, Plantagenty. And every one of them. Even Obama was related. They're all related. Third, fourth, fifth cousins are all related, and so they're being placed there. We're not voting for them. You know. Divine right of kings. Yep, and that's such a scam. War of the Worlds. That's what we are at. We're in the War of the Worlds. We don't have to wait for Martians to come here. But anyway, back to Fringe. They had these guys who were called the Watchers, and they wore like gray suits, had gray business, you know, briefcase and these hats, and they would go into diners and they would eat gigantic meat sandwiches and pile it high with black pepper. And so that J.J. Abrams he slips a lot of good stuff in there, and same with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. They all tell it like it is, but they were put there by the hidden hand, because within the magical mystery tour, we the mud puppets have to be kind of told what's coming down the line, and we have to kind of be ready for it, and accept it instead of fight it. Nobody questioned 9/11. Building 7 went down, nothing hit it. Why did what? A couple of burning chunks hit it, and that caused the whole building to fall down. It just happened to be that's where the CIA, FBI, NSA, and the Treasury Department had a ton of records that they didn't want people to read. Oops, that building, it's all down. And also a number of the gold vaults were down there. And oops, where'd that gold go? Don't know. It just went someplace. So yeah, I love that show. And it had its arc, and then they tried to rebirth it in the near future when the Watchers tried to take over. Uh, Yep, it's a reunion already. Yep, yep. Every time you come to Dreamy Dreamland, it's a reunion. And that's what the cadre is. It's a fellowship. We're like the fellowship of the rings, you know? Native American stories. So there's a great Lakota story about a small tribe out in, in the plains. Missy, a little more hot water, please. Thank you. And two lids. And two what lids? Lids, yeah. Yeah. And they were a small band, and they lived in harmony with all their relations, and everything went on for generation after generation. And every family gave birth to great warriors and great um, medicine men and women and great leaders, and they used the Iroquois um, longhouse as their way to air and decide their band's um, agenda. But in every day and every way, they lived in balance. Thanks, Missy. With all our relations, right? So there's Plum and Corn, right? And they had been sweet on each other since they were little things. Plum is the female warrior, and Corn is the male warrior. And Corn is um, he's more than just a warrior. He's also a nurser and a healer and a thinker. And Plum is a warrior and a hunter and a herbalist and a lot of fun. She's a great dancer, a great musician, great drummer, and a great um, manufacturer of garments from the hides and the plants that are all around. So they make this amazing. Everyone goes. I mean, since they were like one, they said, "Oh, these two are made for each other," and so they. As they grew up, everyone tells them this, and so they realize this, and so they're sweet on each other, and they go hunting together, and they are just like two peas in a pod. They're like how Jenny and Forrest were two peas in a pod, just like how in Katniss and the guy she used to go hunting with were two peas in a pod. Now they weren't, you know. And so, and when you procreate, it's more than just lust. It's a deeper kind of connection, and you can be someone's best of friend. Yeah, when I was in grammar school from third to seventh, eighth grade, which was my most fun time in school because I had my own cadre, and it was guys and girls, right? And we were the odd people out, but we never realized we were the odd people out because we had our own cadre, you know. And just like the cadre is here, and you know, and what's interesting, our cadre, we called ourselves the Kingsmen, and there was a singing group called that, and there was a brother and a sister that were part of this group, and they kind of their father was a big musical guy, right? And he kind of worked in nightclubs in New York, and so he had heard everyone, and so there was this group called the Kingsmen, and so we called it, we were looking through the records, oh look, that's the Kingsmen. So we were the Kingsmen, and so the women, the young girls who were there was, let's say, Vinny, me, um, Buzzy, um, Harvey, JP, and Hoagland. And there was Lisa, Debbie, Kim, and Doris or Darlene. I'm not quite sure. But, and so I guess it's Darlene. Darlene and Hoagland, they, you know, they were very strange folk because their family was like 100%, NRA. Their great grandfather started the NRA. I mean, they had guns like, the first time I met Hoagland, I was third grade, and I was a new kid on the block, and I was sitting at the cafeteria by myself, looking at cafeteria food, and Hoagland always worked. He was always dressed to the pins. He had these nice black pants, a nice white shirt, a vest, and a jacket. And that was his kind of thing. And he sits down and he says, "Can I sit here?" I said, "Sure." I start playing my food. He opens his little brown bag, takes out his sandwich, and he goes, "You want to trade?" I said, "You want this stuff?" He said, "Yeah, my mom made me a cheese sandwich." And I look at it, and it's like freshly baked bread. It's like, and she's got this little thing of apple butter in there that she made. And your mom like that? Yeah. I said, "Sure, here." So I'm like eating the cheese sandwich, and I'm like, "Hey, this is great." And so we're talking, and he goes, "I'm new here. Are you new here?" I said, "Yeah, we're both new here." So, so he goes, "You want to see my gun?" I go, "Sure." And he has under his jacket, between his vest and his jacket, he's got a holster, and he's got a Walther PPK, and he takes it out, and I look at it, and I just watched a James Bond movie, and the movies, and I think it was Russia with Love. That was the first one, and I read the book, and my parents didn't even know I could read, and they take me to this movie because they wanted to see it, and I start telling them the whole story, and my mother says, "How do you know the story?" I said, "Oh, I read the book." And she goes, "How you don't read?" I said, "Well, I don't. Yes, I do read, but because what happened was, so that's third grade, right? And in first grade, why I was in that public school was because I was nearly beat to death by a nun in the first grade because it was, we were having, missile drills at least once a week where we didn't go down in the basement. We got under our desk, and there was this gigantic window. And, we were like, there were a couple of things that would be a target within 5 miles of us. So we were going to be atomized. And this nun screamed at me, "Get under your desk." I said, "Sister, there's no reason, before that horn goes off, we're going to be turned into atoms." "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you can lock, Grumman's here and Brookhaven's there. And these are all national targets, they're going to drop 5 or 6 between the Empire State Building and, Montauk Point. They're going to drop like 5 or 6 hydrogen bombs, boom, 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 boom. We're just going to be one churning ball of energy. And before that, we're going to be first toasted, roasted, and then see that big glass window. It's going to shatter, and we're going to be sliced up like bologna." And there was a fear about this in her really deep, and she grabbed me by the neck, and she goes, "No, we're not." And, "Hey, how you doing?" "Yeah." She started punching me out, broke my jaw, broke my eye out, but that's what this didn't work too good. And just went on and on and on, beating me until other nuns came in and dragged them off of me. And, my mom came to get me, and I was like, I'm semi-unconscious. And, they were going to say, "Oh, your son's, She goes, No, nobody beats my son like this. I'm taking him away." So my mom was pretty well connected in the Catholic Church. And I had a godfather who was a cardinal. And so they hooked me up. And so um, and in kindergarten, they put me in this kindergarten. At the woman was like a saint, Mrs. Gerling. So they sent me back to Mrs. Gerling, and 4 or 5 days, kind of like from Wednesday to Sunday, I would go to Garden City where the Marinols had this kind of college, but it was like a big, it was like it was a theologic college. I mean, people who were going to be Marinol priests went there, not everybody. So it was a small group of people. So in one of these, they had names for them, house, but it was like a dormitory, but not, and they had a special name for it. But in this one, these were all scholars, not students, not teachers, scholars. And one guy was a psychologist, one guy was into geometry and math, one guy was computers, one guy was, what was he? History. Another guy was logos. He was all about etymology, where the words came from. So, I would be there from Wednesday to Sunday night, and I had my own little room, little teeny room, bed, and a little table, but they had a gigantic library, and they were all studying things. And during those days, I would study with each one of them, and they would just go on with what they were really on about. And so the that's where I learned how to read. And all these guys basically said, Al, part of your issue with going to school is you don't think like anyone else. And at a certain point, they're going to call that, and that's why that nun beat, you close to death, because you scared her because you told her things she didn't want to hear. And you told it to her in a way and that was the first time I heard of a griot, the guy who was Mr. Etymology. So you tell people stories in a way that not only can they understand, but it goes straight to the heart. And this is the first time I ever said it goes to the myelin sheath, right? It wasn't until I took anatomy until I got into healing about, 15, 16, 20 years later, that I learned the myelin sheath is this material that goes around our nerves. It's like plastic insulation around our nerves, so things don't get, mixed information through the nervous system. But what the myelin sheath, there is, we think the only thing going on is our heart and our cardiovascular system. We have 9 other systems, and there's a thing called cranial sacral, where you balance the different pulses of your body. And one is your myelin sheath, this material that goes around the nerves. And other than being this material that's like an insulator to the nerves, it also carries information. And the thing it carries is the information of the fight and flight syndrome, right? That goes to part of our brain back here. And it's like the emergency, it goes right past any nervous system there is, and it goes straight to what you got to do. And it goes even past, we have this system of our breathing and our heart pumping and all these different things happening. And we don't even have to think, if we had to think about our breathing or our heart pumping or any of the things going on in our, genetic structure, it wouldn't be too good. So autonomic system, right? So this myelin sheath carries this information, and this information comes from stressors of, really stressful, traumas, through trauma. So you see your parents killed, you're in war. These are traumatic experiences. That's what PTSD is. And that's, when I worked at the VA, that's what I was working on trying to, I worked at the VA in 72, 3, 4. kind of area. And most of the time I was going to school. I wasn't even working at the hospital. But so I was trying to figure out how to, what this trauma thing was, how it worked. And there wasn't too much information in, when you are trying to research things, you go to the library and you look up what other people have researched, and people weren't working on it. And if they were, they would talk about the Nazis and what they did in the camps, because Mengele and others did all kinds of, that's where we got MK Ultra, and Gregory Peck plays a great Nazi scientist from the Boys of Brazil, which shows that they had perfected genetic cloning back in the 30s, So, hey, Thomas, good to see you, brother. Yeah, talking about in the 50s. Yep. So, so I had these priests. So I had this really interesting dynamic of seeing this traumatic world of where everyone lives in the movie screen as the 50s, Donna Reed, Father Knows Best, which is a psychopathic, sociopathic, worldview. And so the psychopathic is born, sociopathic is made. And our culture is based on both. So everyone out there is swimming in this world of trauma. And we have so we can either get stuck in that movie screen or we can rewrite the script, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about, and how to write your script is that we have to first see that we're stuck in this trauma. Then we have to write it down. What's going on, why I'm being manipulated, what trauma did I experience? You go back to that and you write it down. And when we do our guided meditations, I bring you to your Akashic record, and I have put your left hand on the left page, right on the right page, and lean into your Akashic record and evacuate hate and anger and all of that trauma. Right? That's what I'm having you to do. But that is the best way to do it, but it takes some practice. But if you write this stuff down, whether you can go into state or not, you can get rid of this energy. You can cleanse the trauma that's in your myelin sheath. And when you do that, so people who have especially degenerative nerval and something wrong in you, you have the physical thing, like your bones are broken or bent, and then the muscles, and then the fascia. Right? That's the physical side. And doctors who are good, who can identify that physical problem and go to it and fix that physical problem, have a good 98%, right, shot of taking care of you. But if you have a compressed disc or this or that, and they can't say, specifically 100%, this is the problem, letting them cut on you, you only have somewhere between 10 and 20% success rate. Whereas if the doctor can actually say, see, this thing right here is wrong, we can fix that. There's a 90 to 100% chance of and you'll get at least 90% back, right? So that's why surgery is not bad, but you shouldn't have that be your first motif. And once you start to get cut, things can just go downhill. My mom did, things went downhill. My brother, downhill. Other friends. So I've hurt myself, and instead of having surgery, like my the cartilage in my knees, being an electrician, going up ladders, standing on top of ladders, and balancing myself and kneeling, crawling around, it hurt my knees and my ankles, and but instead of I was working in a hospital. Oh, we'll just, go right in there and scrape all that gook out and fix it for you. I said, no, no. I'm going to physical therapy, and that takes so much time and so much pain. I said, no, no, but it'll fix it. Now, yours is just, and then I'll have to come back and come back and come back. This, I'll take care of it. Now, there are certain operations, like I said, on your knees or different things. If the doctor can say exactly what it is and see how we can fix this, well, that's the way to go. But if they just, we'll go in there and poke around. Not really. So, that's, that's what you have to do. You have to go to that place of trauma and see it for what it is, and then write about it, and then reprogram the more positive, rewrite your script. So that's what today's show is about. And I think we're going to go into a guided meditation. So everyone get into a comfy spot, right? And Uncle Fugnuts, get a hold of me on my Gmail, the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and explain to me about wrenching. I tell you, I'm not a wrench guy, and all our little friends here who try to disrupt are actually a good example of what we need to go after things. And so here we go. We're going to go into, so anybody who wants to talk to me, get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And especially if you have any information, especially if you live in America, and I can give, you leave your phone number and I can give you a ring and talk to you. So everyone get comfy, put yourself in a place where you're safe and secure, and start breathing that 20% in, right? And this is that way of quieting, because see, a lot of people try to push their, mind over matter. I'm not fat, I'm not fat, I'm not fat, I'm not fat, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not, I'm going to be a million, I'm going to be famous, no. You have to see the reasons why you're being blocked. And when you're the mind over matter motif, what happens is you can't fight your mind with your mind. So that distractive noise in your head just gets louder and louder. So to rewrite the script, you have to have good thoughts that bring good words, good actions, good deeds, good outcomes. Right? That's how to rewrite the script. And when with our friends here who are disruptive, that's their problem. They can't quiet the squirrel in their head. They can't shut their Rolodex in the cage, right? So I challenge you, to see if you can breathe 20% more than you normally do, right? And then breathe out 30% more than you normally do. Because to do this, it takes that conscious mind, takes that squirrel to breathe 20% past your autonomic system, and then 30% out. Why are you breathing 30% out? A, because you're expelling, you're eliminating, you're evacuating all of that anger, all of that fear out of you, right? You breathe in the prana, because when you breathing that, your diaphragm comes up, your lungs expand, the little cilia in there are like little antennae that receive the prana. And the prana is the photonic light from, love's co-creation. That co-creation is between Father Sky and Mother Earth, right? Father Sky is the prana, Mother Earth is the chi. And they have to co-create, right? So everyone breathe in that 20% and out that 30%. And we're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And our conscious mind is going to sleep, and you're in a comfortable place. You're safe and secure. And I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And as I do, you're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So 1, your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. You're breathing in that prana, and it's going into your lungs, and it's energizing all the cilia. And as the red blood goes through your lungs and carries that highly enriched, oxygenized, and prana-filled blood, that is red because there's iron in there, and your blood doesn't go glub, glub, glub through the blood vessels. It spins, right? It goes around the wall of the vein or the artery or the capillary. And then inside that, there's another spin going the opposite way. And inside that, there's one going 90 degrees. And what it is doing is being a generator, polyphased, alternating current generator. And it's generating scalar energy, not Hertzian, but scalar, multidimensional. And that multidimensional is a carrier frequency. That scalar wave is a carrier frequency of the prana. And the prana is going all through into every cell you have. And as your cell is splitting, and the mitochondria, which is like the electric lightning bolts around each cell, it splits open, and you can see into that cell, and that's the doorway into your imaginary mirror, you know? So when you look into the opening cell, and there's that highly energized photonic mitochondria, you see this photonic light, this bright light, and it has no shadow. See, we're underneath an incandescent light, right? See the shadow? Photonic light has no shadows whatsoever. So that incandescent light is Luciferian light. Lucifer is an incandescent being. He is the shadow, you know. So you are looking into every cell of your body, seeing it heal itself. So you can heal whatever wrong with you, whatever disease you have, by rewriting the script, by breathing in that thing. And the thing that you see me drinking here, this is water with honey and black pepper. You can also have water, honey, and apple cider vinegar. This chemically changes your body from acidic into base, which allows that photonic light to stay there, right? Acidic is disharmony. Base is like the base, right? So in every day and every way, you take the piece of the earth and you make it stronger by breathing in that 20%. And one, you're in a deep, deep, deep state of relaxation. Your conscious mind now is totally focused on your breath. You are energizing every cell of your body with photonic light, and you're healing every part of your DNA. You're rewriting the script. And that photonic light, you bring it to your imaginary mirror, right here, right behind your eyelids, where you have REM sleep. And you see there in your imaginary mirror, you project that photonic light into your subconscious, and you see that your subconscious is not a scary, dark place. It's a library of your Akashic record, and that's the library of your soul, you know. And you see, because time is not linear, it's like alpha to the omega, you see it clearly, right? That's why we have all these different lives, because how could you learn what you need to learn in the sandbox in one shot? No. So that's why we have this experience of different lives, you know. And the slate is wiped, and you know, if you can ascend your conscious self higher and higher, you will remember all your past lives. But you are walking into your Akashic record right now, and you see all these books up on the shelves, and the big books, and the big heavy leather and gold leaf all the way around. And you go in there and you walk in and you see a fireplace with the blue flame. It's the eternal flame. And around the fireplace are some comfy chairs, lounge chairs. To your right are the 9 doors, and one of them is open. The others are closed, and then over to your left is a desk, reading table lit with a photonic light, and so there are no shadows. And it's a very comfy reading chair. Not lounge, but very comfy, so you don't get tired. And to your left is your librarian. To the left of your librarian is your animal totem. To your left of your animal totem is your guardian angel. Librarian brings you your Akashic record, brings you information, right? So you open up the book. Put your left hand on the left page, it's blank. Right hand on the right page, it's blank. And you lean in the book and you eliminate, you evacuate all of the hate, all the anger, all of the fear, all of the script that's being written for you. And you're blanking it. And then in that blank screen, you see right in front of you a big screen. Those 2 pages aren't blank anymore. It's a screen. And around it are 28 little screens. And in that big screen, you see what you've just evacuated, all those things that you're angry with, that you're fearful of, that you hate. I hate this, right? See it. And then around it are 28 little screens that show you this different dimensions, different angles of where all of these traumas came from when you were a little child. So when I was a little child, the first thing I did was stick a knife in an electric socket. And I was like, wow, this is an imprint. So I was a floating ground. So I wasn't getting electrocuted. I was just kind of, woo. And that's when I, was totally enamored with electricity. And when I was 6, I made a very large discharge chamber. And, you're not like a rocket scientist by 6, but, I was hanging out with these guys, who were scholars, and I was reading their Scientific American. Like, oh, this, So I took it home and I started collecting the things that they said you needed, and I kind of stuck it together the best I could at 6. And the thing kind of worked, but it also kind of blew up and just burnt me to a crisp. Now, I've been burnt to a crisp a number of times, but this one was bad in that most times when I got burnt to a crisp, it would just burn all my hair off. That's kind of why I have such crazy hair. It just comes back crazier and crazier. And but I burnt my hands pretty bad, so I had to have my hands bandaged for a number of weeks. And so, they took all my toys away from me, but that was kind of a trauma. And I went back to my grandma because she was my unconditionally loving environment. And because, I was just a bit of my parents had 6 other kids. And so I was, I was so not like anybody else. So that was a trauma, but instead of it like being stuck in me, like, oh, that's all I can talk about, that experience, no, and when I was born, I died and was brought back, and from birth till 10, I was sick all the time. And I was out of hospital all the time and blowing myself up, and, they knew me pretty well at the hospital. And so none of that was trauma. It was just experience, right? And I don't really talk about it unless it's appropriate to, give a little flavor to the storyline. So there is something about me that I don't quite get traumatized by these experiences because I have so many, not just my parents who were good, but they were, they were stressed. They were, doing the best they could. And, but I had these other people who were always there giving me positive reinforcement and saying, okay, don't do that again. That wasn't bad. Just don't do that again. And so every time I picked up, when I was at the Maryknoll College, every time I picked up a Scientific American, or they had a lot of engineering books there. Um, you know, my Father Gray, he would say, "Well, you're not going to do that again, are you?" No, 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 just reading, just reading. And then he would talk about it. He would tell stories about it himself, his experiences with things of that nature, because he was at national laboratories a good deal. Anyway, so you'll find if you do any kind of research that in all these places of national security and NASA and space and the Air Force and all that kind of high technology places, you'll find a lot of priests, a lot of nuns, because they were well educated. One of the greatest scientific libraries on the face of this earth is in the Vatican, PTSD, and that's a hard one. And if you can go into state, Thomas, you can take that trauma and put it on a blank page of your Akashic record, and do that now. All of you, whatever is troubling you, whatever is your trauma, you know, put your trauma on the screen, let it go, you know, and then see all of the causes of it in the 28 little screens all around. Right? And that's where you can write your new script. You don't have to be stuck, and our little trolls are a good example, of stuff. They always follow the same script. They can't rewrite, stick themselves in this laundry list of how am I going to pay my bills? Oh, I hate that person. Oh, this is terrible. Blah 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 blah. Accuse, accuse, accuse. Because they don't want to rewrite their script, because there's, I don't want to say they're comfortable in their trauma or they're comfortable in their misery, but it's at least something they know. And the thing that scares them the most is the concept that they might have to make themselves, that they might have to be responsible for their own life instead of blaming somebody else. So that's what going into state, what's going into your Akashic records. So your librarian will bring you whatever you need to know, more books. And then when you see something in your Akashic record like those, you can see it. You can get the multiple dimensional angles of what's going on. And you'll still go, what the heck? What did that mean? What's that about? Because usually it's going up against a whole stack of other traumas that came from other lives. And they're still going, no, 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 no. And that's when you ask your animal totem for a story. And your animal totem is your personal griot. I am your Sensei Al-Bab, your griot. The community griot. But your animal totem is your personal griot. Your animal totem knows everything about you. You can't hide from your animal totem. So I want you all to ask your animal totem to give you insight into those fears, those anxieties, those hatreds of yourself and others, and free yourself from that so you can rewrite your own script, so you can have the life you want, because you can have it. You put it on that screen and you can have it. No matter how many interruptions you get, And I was cleaning up the site this morning, and I would, and I got things packed, papers and books and all kinds of, cardboard. I'm a big fan of cardboard boxes, and I got this thing. And everything that happens to us when you rewrite the script yourself is a blessing. And you don't have to go to some religion or some outside source, because we are the source. We're just keeping ourselves from it. And that's why, our troll friends here are, here for a blessing. They're here for us to see. We get a real, if they don't want to be, healed and have their their troll self taken away, well, they just have to leave the channel. You know, and one of them said, "Oh, there's not much love here for us." No, there's a lot of love for you because you know we understand. Everyone here has had a trauma. Until you can, um, see your own trauma. You know, be honest with yourself about yourself, and flush all of the hatred and anxiety and trauma out of your myelin sheaths and reprogram yourself to be the person you want to be. You are just going to repeat this scenario over and over again. You'll be here a trillion lives. Do you really want to be this miserable for a trillion lives? Because the universe will give this little blue marble as much time as it needs to be the sandbox for our souls, right? So that's the thing about our troll friends is that they are right in front of us, being the great example of how to be miserable, and what not to do with your life. That they get stuck in a script that they can't get out of because it's not of their own making. They're just so fearful that they can't get away from it. All they have to do is say, "Okay, now look at what happened." I had a lot of physical things happen to me. I died many times in this life, and my childhood, I was sick. I was in the hospital 3 months of every year. And it wasn't until I was 10 when I went into this hospital in Florida. My parents said, "Okay, we're going to go to Florida. It'll be warm there and he won't get sick." Well, I got up the airplane and I was sick. I spent the next 3 weeks in a hospital, in a Catholic hospital. And I was delirious the whole time. They didn't take care of me. They just, put me over the corner and put a TV up there. And I was watching The Wizard of Oz, and the Wing and Winkies were going after Dorothy. And this nun, "Are you okay?" Because I was screaming, "The Wing and Winkies, the Wing and Winkies." And this nun got right in my face. And, after being beat up by one, I wasn't too happy, especially the Maryknoll nuns were the first to go out of the habits after Vatican II. And that was you should go read Vatican II. That was really a great piece of liturgy. And so she looked like the flying nun. She had this habit that my hair, they looked like wings, right? She was right in my face, and I KO'd her. And she kind of flew over me and went over into the side and smashed into. I heard the crashing. I didn't see what because I was delirious. And when I came out of the delirium a few days later, they had chained me to the bed and put one of those Hannibal Lecter helmets on. So I couldn't say anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't push the button. I was in my own waste, and no one was coming. And I had broke. My fever had gone. I was whatever illness was, it was gone. And yet I was there for a good 2 hours. Going, this sucks. So I said to myself, when I get out of this, I am never going to get sick ever again. And I never did. From 10 until today, haven't been sick. Yeah, a little cold here and then. A little this, a little that, but nothing like that. And that was 10 years of pain and suffering and doctors and poking and prodding and having them whisper over in the corner, "Well, he won't live past tomorrow," Anyway, so that's what you have to get over, right? You have to let go. Just let go. Well, buddy, see, this is a good thing. It's making this come up. So what you need to do is now write this down. You guys should have a little. I always do. I go into at Walmart's. school days. These things, they sell for 25 cents a piece. You know, I gather $10 together and get a whole bunch of these. That's all I need for a year. And if you go to the Dollar Tree, they're $1, sometimes $1 for two, but they're bound so that it never comes apart. And what are they called? A composition book. So I've got at least two at my side, and I write it down. And so, buddy, you should get a couple of these or anything, and you write down your feelings. And then once you've written them down, you tear them up. They're no longer in you. And if you go into state and you eliminate, you evacuate this anger, this hate of these traumas, and they go on the screen, you see the 28 different dimensions of them. You then ask your animal totem, so tell me a story about this. Where did I get this? What's going on? Help me write a new script. And that's what your totem will do. Then your guardian angel, one of the reasons why our little troll friends here can't get over their hatred, their fear, their self-loathing, is because they're scared. Fear brings anger. Anger brings hatred. Hatred brings self-loathing. Self-loathing brings self-destruction. Just in the antecedent of that, good thoughts. He loves co-creation, brings good words, brings good actions, which brings good deeds, which bring good outcomes. So no matter the flotsam and jetsam of the world around us, it's just a sandbox. It's not kind of what matters. It's how we navigate it and how we take it upon ourselves to rewrite our script, right? So you try and do that. You know, try to evacuate your self-loathing. Try and evacuate your fear. You know, try to see your better self, Yo-Yo. Come on. But I thank you for being here because you are the best example of, I'd have to invent someone like you. But you're doing it all year long. Oh, you know, thank you, Yo-Yo. I appreciate it. So, buddy, like I said, and everyone else, write it down, right? That's true, Fish. You know, when you have to deal with life, you know, you realize it's not, you're not there to be famous or to be idolized or to be rich or to be taken care of or to get your way all the time. No, life is about service. You know, it's the we and me, you know, it's all our relations and how we get along together, how we love each other, how we bring joy. What brings me joy is you guys, you know. Okay, Thomas, we're going to take care of that pain right now, right? So is it your right shoulder, your left shoulder? I'm actually going to, both your shoulders are connected through your scapula. So we're going to work on this whole body portion of you, right? So right now. Breathe that 20% in. Everyone who's on the chat, breathe that 20% in. Illuminate yourself with that prana and feel it as a ball around you. And then put it around Thomas Robinson. We're going right in there and we're going to take care of that pain. And that pain is our friend in that it gives us the understanding of what physically, and again, you have the physical mechanical problem, you have the fascia problem, the muscle problem, but then you have that myelin sheath. Everything can be fine, and you can still have muscle memory, which is a myelin sheath. So go back, Thomas, to where the problem originated. Whether it was in battle or in life or in childhood or just recently, whatever it is, visualize where it came from. So you physically see that, right? Then put that moment onto the page and see all the 28 different angles, dimensions of that pain, where it came from, what's going on, and then release that anxiety, right? Release that fear of the myelin sheath, of the muscle memory, right? Even that 20% and let it go. Let that fear go. Let that anxiety go. Okay, Thomas, I know. And Thomas and anybody else, anything you want me to see on YouTube, it would be best if you send it to my Gmail so I can just hit it and I can see it, or leave it on this channel. Everyone in the contrary, illuminate that love. See that prana light going into Thomas's shoulders, his scapula, his rib cage, his arms, his fingers, every muscle. Just let it go. And every day and every way, we take the piece of the earth and we make it stronger. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. As it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without end. This is true. No one can hurt you unless you let yourself be hurt. You know, that's why I don't believe in weapons. You know, um, when I worked in New York City in the Housing Authority in New York, I went into a lot of very dangerous situations. When I was, like this, dressed, I was obviously wasn't dressed like a policeman, even though I was one. But I was a conflict resolution counselor. But I worked for the housing authority, so I had a little badge. That's really the only thing I had was my badge. So if other police showed up, I could just say, "Hey guys, cool, cool." And one reason I got shot once, but that was my own. I mean, I stepped in front of a gun so others wouldn't get shot. And everyone in that room, if that guy who was pointing the gun at somebody else had shot that other person, everyone had a gun out. And because I got shot and everyone knew me as a person personally and was not a threat, but semi-friend because I always gave everyone a break. Now my partner, not so much. She would kill everyone. So we were the ultimate in good cop, bad cop. But pretty much the only time violence ever occurred was that one time because I could tell that he was going to shoot the other guy. He was so pissed off, and there was no way I could talk him down. So I kind of, stepped in front of the gun. And all that happened, was that the bullet grazed my hand, just like that. And there were a number of not, small or large capillaries, but not veins or arteries, but bleedy things. You see that little, and it did that, and it kind of sprayed me. I went like this, and it sprayed me with my blood, and it looked a lot messier than it was. So it freaked everyone out, and everyone put their, half the people dropped their gun, the other put them away and came to my aid. And then when my partner showed up, and she had, she was aiming for bear, and I was, kind of a little dazed, but I said, no, it's okay. Just call for the bus and give the code. And I said, okay, everybody, get out of this place and don't do this again. And the guy who shot me, leave your gun behind. So he did. Everybody split. About 5 minutes later, about 20 other cops showed up, and the bus showed up, and they put me on a gurney, and the guy's like looking at, I've got blood all over me, and he's like looking for bullet holes, and goes, where did you get shot? I said, right here. And he kind of, cleans it off and goes, that's a flesh wound. How did you bleed? I said, I guess I was, my adrenaline was going, and it's not really bleeding that much now, but anyway, so he takes me down the bus. He puts a bandage on it. He goes, it doesn't even need stitches, He goes, I mean, you're really lucky. If your hand was turned a different way, it might have blown your hand right off. But really, what this is a burn from a gun discharge, and that your hand kind of deflected the gun to the point where the bullet went into the wall. Anyway, so that's the only time I ever was violently hurt. But I've been in hundreds of extraordinarily violent situations. And because I don't go in with fear, I slow everything down. I let it all go. So we're going to pick up where we left off, unless you got some interesting questions. Let's see. Yeah, it was a tough city in the 70s and 80s. I mean, actually, the first part of the 70s was great, but what really kicked it off was the oil embargo, because pretty much rent control, everyone had rent control. I had amazing rent control apartments, but the city paid for all the expenses, and the rent was what the owner of the building got. So when oil went through the roof and the city couldn't pay for it, and the landlords had to, they just closed the buildings down, right? And so within, between 1972 and 77, more than 500,000 buildings, or 500,000, maybe 1,000,000 apartments were dark, went dead, went under, went gone. So, and that's really what started the de-evolution of everything. And but disco was awful fun, and there were all these little communities that were really great, and that's what Soho was. That's what Tribeca was. See me, and so it's that's the bottom line. We all can write our own script. Thomas, are you feeling better? Well, yo, it's obvious you don't understand. I wasn't a police officer. I didn't go through the academy, and I worked for the Housing Authority of New York, which was not a police organization. It was a rental organization. And I got the job because I ran a housing authority of my own. And the way that they married the two together was like gave me a job there. And what my training was for was conflict resolution. They said, "Oh, you would be perfect for this. We need a guy like you." And so they was right in the neighborhood of one of our housing authorities in Alphabet City, and so I wasn't a cop. So, and if you weren't so set in your fear and anger, you might have expanded your. We have two ears for a reason. Yo-yo, to listen. And Thomas, put some honey, lemon, apple cider vinegar, and black pepper are all good um, muscle relaxants and reducing inflammation. So, no, I wasn't a security guard. Ow. See, gang, that's why it's good to have him around, or it. I don't know what gender or species yo-yo is, but you couldn't invent that. You couldn't write that. You know, that's why that's important because it gives a visceral response to everyone else in their own way. That's the beauty of Yo-Yo is that he brings forth a response, which gives us the ability to observe um, the things that make us angry. Oh, that's why. Oh, look, I'm feeling angry right now, and Yo-Yo say, "Oh, look at that." So that's what we all need to do is look at what Yo-Yo makes us angry about. Now, that's why I appreciate Yo-Yo because like I said, I don't know what species he is, but um, yeah, meditation. Go to any one of the Dreamy Dreamland or Sensei Alban guided meditations. Ooh, hit by a drunk driver. Yeah. Well, my buddy, that's self-evident. But again, use yo-yo to see what gets you angry, right? And then it'll be a gift. And then you can eliminate. That's what you need to do. Eliminate that stressor that is, you know, brought forth by yo-yo, right? So, and everything we have to kind of, oh, so when I worked for the housing authority, and then as I worked 5 years later as a volunteer fireman, an EMT, I saw a lot of, you know, tragedy brought on by self-medication of alcohol and drugs. And if you self-medicate because you have to, that's one thing. But if you take it out on the street, that's not good, you know. But there's always help, you know. There's always help, and anyone who wants to, yeah, When I was a EMT, what was really interesting, somebody who was up messed up the most always survived. I remember one time we we where our house was, our firehouse was at a place where there were two interstates that crossed. They didn't make a closed relief; they just did this. And so big trucks would run over little cars without even seeing them, and motorcycles. So it was 3 or 4 times a week we would go to response. And the other thing we went to was there was a retiree village of people in trailers and 3 or 4 heart attacks. So we got pretty good at sparking people back. And my job was to be the triage guy to figure out, well, we do this, 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 and this. And there were other people who were guys with the magic jaws, and the other guys with the lines so nothing would burn. And so we were a great team. And my job, was to like keep them relaxed. When they had the steering column through their chest, like just say, don't upset, relax, we'll get you out. And we'd have to cut the column off and deliver them to the to the emergency room with the thing sticking out. Because we took that, they bleed out like that, and other things. So in that, we were very good. And the hospital wasn't too far. So we had pretty much, I'd say at least 98% of the people who were in really bad shape, we got them there and live. And maybe 97% of them pulled out, were okay and walked out of the hospital. So, somewhere between 2 and 4%. And the other thing I did was, when it's pretty obvious these people were not going to make it to the emergency room, I would be there, hold their hand, and say, don't be scared. So what are you seeing now? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? What are you hearing? And I would kind of get them comfortable with the other side and have them describe it to me. So that was something very interesting. And that's why I did that job, because everyone on my team were more or less adrenaline junkies. And the main reason that brought me to that firehouse was that was mostly interesting women were, fire people there. There's like 20-something women in that house, and I guess 8 guys. And 4 of the guys were high school kids, because in that state, if you were volunteer fireman when you're in high school, that state would pay your college if you went to a state school. I wish more states would do that today, because a lot of volunteer fire departments are, they don't have volunteers. Anyway, so like I said, anybody wants to talk, there's always me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And if you live in America, give me your phone number. We can talk. Otherwise, we can communicate over the good old Gmail. Oh, well, Yo-Yo, if you haven't realized, I'm wearing to read what you have to say, I'd have to put on this many glasses, and I don't think I want to do that. So I don't really, I just notice that you're there. I don't really read your stuff. I don't have to, but when I see others, Fish and Buddy and Z and D, I mean, people who have something of value to add to the chat, well, I will focus on what they're saying. But, I really don't have to focus on what you're saying, Yo-Yo. Because you don't really say anything about yourself. You never add anything to the discourse. You just blame and accuse and whine and cry. And, I don't even know what gender you are. I don't even know what species you are. I don't know whether you're cold or warm-blooded or scaled or furred or feathered, or whether you're just silicon, somebody's algorithm in there. But you are a great simulation of anger and fear and self-loathing. So, those are 3 words. So I see you there, and all I have to know is anger, fear, self-loathing, self-hatred, And you are a great, great blessing because you are the, simulator that we can all see. Oh, look at that. Oh, okay. So why am I getting upset at this thing? Oh, okay. So that's what's twitching me over here. And that's a good thing. That's your positive. That's why I don't want you wrenched out of the circumstances because your hidden value is that as a, an exhibit, you're an exhibit, you know, and, I don't have to read what you have to say because it's just self-loathing, hate, and fear. So, I know to speak to those subjects every time I see, Yo-Yo. So thank you again, Yo-Yo. And but he's so correct when he says, "So fix it." Don't be a wanker. I love Australian terms, like Richard Cranium. You know what Richard Cranium means, right? Anyway, I feel sorry for Australia. It is such a blessing of a place, and the white sociopaths who showed up there 200 something years ago. Oh, I mean, the powers that shouldn't be in Australia are a great example of yo-yo. They are yo-yo. They represent yo-yo. Yo-yo is a manifestation of our cultural dysfunction, our cultural sociopath, psychopath, you know, and the powers that be. I mean, before the English got there was 60 feet of black topsoil. And if we had used that land correctly, instead of putting cows and sheep on it and letting it eat it down to the ground, and then the big floods come through, and at 125 years, it washed all of that black topsoil away. And it's not a British accent, yo-yo. It's Australian or New Zealand. Of course, I believe the great alien contacted you. I mean, they're all over the place. And, there are different shapes and categories of them. Just like there's tons, the movie Men in Black is exactly, and that's why movies, of that ilk speak up to what's going on, and gives us a heads up. So, that little aluminum box in the Battery, in New York City, that's exactly what that is. It's there, and that's where. You're looking good today, ma'am. So that's what you look for. You look for the interesting things in life. Yep, don't take any day for granted. And I too, you know, take every moment as a blessing, you know. Uh, Bug nuts. Anyway, Uh, yep. We just have to keep transforming ourselves every day in every way. And we do that through service to love's co creation. So I'm going to sign off with a prayer for all our souls and all our ascending consciousnesses to succeed in every day and every way, to take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord's with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, and now at the hour of death. Amen. Let us ground our chi and let Father Sky's prana flow through us and heal and cleanse. And in every day, take the peace of the earth. Well, Lord's Prayer and the Hail Mary are more than a Catholic prayer. The Catholics kind of, stole them, just like, the Holy Roman Empire was stolen. The people who started the Holy Roman Empire were pagan businessmen, and their empire was failing. And so, how are we going to rebrand this? And they went into the Holy Roman Empire, and then into, the Catholic Church. And so, but those two prayers have been around a long time, and they can be traced back to the bards of Ireland, right? And those guys came from Atlantis. So it's not quite a Catholic prayer, And Hail Mary. Mary is the mother of Earth, is Gaia, And so when you go into the etymology, and that that's why I liked the Catholic Church is a very interesting thing, because there are all these different sects, and a lot of them are very, very great people and do great work. And so we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But that's why you have to rewrite your own script, to every day and every way, take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. So I love you guys. And here it is, 1 hour, 43 minutes, 27 seconds. So I'm going to kind of... yeah, this is a free speech channel. Yep. And it always works out. It always works out. I miss being able to do the nighttime guided meditations. I have to be in a public space. It's a little tough to recreate the shamanic bubble while people are eating their cheeseburgers. And not that I don't. I mean, I did a little bit of that just a few minutes ago. But you should be doing all of this on your own. Again, go back. Get yourself a dartboard, throw a dart, get the number. I have almost 700. If I don't have 700, I'm almost 700. But I'm almost pretty sure I got over 700 shows on Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. Yes, it's thunder. And I'm doing my little, in Ireland, everybody's grandma knows how to keep the rain away, the storm, just a little further this way. And because there's a mountain range, it's really easy to bounce those storms just a little this way, a little that way. Well, I love it when it storms, all the electricity, all of the ozone in the air. I love it when the grass, you smell it after, in the forest after a rainstorm. Love to you all. We love you, Yo-Yo. We really do. Do you ever go to a football game or a baseball game and they have a mascot who's always like falling down the stairs and, you know, doing something embarrassing? Well, that's, Yo-Yo is our mascot, you know. 432 hertz. Uh, Uncle. Well, that's Uncle. Yes, exactly. And it's good to have a chuckle, It's good, in indigenous lands. Oh, and I didn't finish telling you the Lakota story. I'll tell you that tomorrow. Um, well, nobody's here, so I can tell it now. So there was Corn and Plum. They got married, and they were in this one clan that was out in the plains, and they lived in connection with love's co-creation of all our relations. And the white man hadn't showed up yet. Now they had heard of him, visiting. Iroquois and Cherokee had told them of this grand consumption, this monster, the white man, the devil. And so, but they were living in paradise. There was always buffalo and things grew everywhere, and you didn't have to really work that hard, and nothing was work because, making your clothes, you made because you love making your clothes. You made your bow because you loved making your bow. You loved taking care of your pony and everyone in your clan, and you listened to all the elders, right? And there were no old people. There were just, babies, children, adolescents, grown-ups, elders, right? And everyone had their place. Everyone had their skill set. Everyone was appreciated and everything was shared equally. No one owned anything. And as the years passed by, and more came of their fellows came east, and they were glad to see them, to hear their stories, and to learn things from them. But they kept telling of the destruction, of the consumption, of the never-ending consumption, and so the this was because, but they still didn't see any white people yet. They just saw more and more of their brethren heading west, getting away from the east. And so, again, Corn and Plum grew up and knew that they were together, and then, all the elders said, "Okay, it's time for you two to take your seat at the circle, pass the pipe, and become one." So they built their wedding lodge, and they went through all the ceremonies, and they had a great party, and it went on for days and days and days, and then after all of the dancing and singing and sharing, everyone was tired and went to their own wigwams, and Plum and Corn went to their own sacred marriage lodge, and so they went into rapture, and they experienced a beautiful wedding night, and then they fell asleep in each other's arms, and they woke up to a great storm, a thundering sound, but there was no rain, and there was no flash of lightning, but the thunder was all around them, and the wind was blowing, and they looked outside of their wedding lodge, and the buffalo, they never saw so many buffalo. They were just flying by them. And all of a sudden, they saw a great monster just walking through the buffalo and picking them up and just eating them. Whole buffaloes, great buffaloes weighing 2,000 pounds. This great monster of the great consumption. Right, and so they, both being warriors, grabbed their bows and ran out to confront, because their wedding lodge was away from the clan's campsite, and they wanted to protect it. So they went out and just started hitting the Great Consumption with arrows, and it didn't even pierce its skin. And it was a misformed creature, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, a chest, but it was just all kinds of eyes and just the most hideous thing you could ever imagine. And it had to be at least 20 people tall. And it swept its big hand at them, and it hit Corn, and he went flying across the field and hit a tree and went unconscious, couldn't get up. But Plum, she, dove out of the way and rolled and popped up and just started hitting it with more arrows and got one in its eye, just right in its eye. And the eye exploded, and the creature screamed and reached down and grabbed her, and she couldn't get away. And he put, just as Corn was coming back to being awake, he heard Plum scream, and he looked up and he saw her trying to get out of the monster of Great Consumption's hand. And the animal creature monster, popped Plum into its mouth and started chewing and swallowing. And Corn was shocked. He couldn't. And so all he could do was jump up and run to the camp where his clan was. And he woke everyone up and said, "Run, run, run." But not everyone could get up and run. And all of the warriors got up and took their weapons, their slings, their arrows, and went straight at the monster. And the elders took the children away, and the infirmed, they were trying to get away, but were not fast enough. And the great creature of consumption had flame coming out of its mouth. The flame was the flame of hatred, the flame of fear, the flame of self-loathing, the flame of doubt. All of that Yo-Yo is. Yo-Yo is the carbuncle of the monster of Great Consumption. And so the monster just laid waste to the camp and grabbed those few that were trying to protect the innocent, and they were swallowed up. And then the creature turned and walked, and Corn ran as fast as he could to try and keep up with it, and ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. But, Corn's legs were 1/100th of the monster's legs. And so with every step the monster took, it was taking, for every one step the monster took, it was taking 100 of Corn's steps. And so, but Corn did not stop, and he ran as long as he could. The monster, got far enough away he couldn't see. But the thing that Corn could follow the track was 2 things: the footprints in the earth and its smell. The smell was unbelievable, and it didn't waste away with space. So, because chunks would fall off, and there'd be chunks of the monster, and it was like slime. And a day went by, and Corn had no real water. He had no provisions. He didn't have any weapons left. And so he ran and he ran and he ran, still trying to keep up with it. And then one night, he couldn't really go any further, and he collapsed. And he started crying because he had, he didn't know whether he could keep up with the monster. And then all of a sudden, there were warriors all around him from other clans. And what had happened was the monster had come through their campsites and decimated them. And so, the monster of mass consumption um, now had about 20 clans that he had destroyed in their Lakota family. And and so they said, listen, we have people following it. We know where it's going. We're trying to marshal our forces together to defeat this monster. Because if we can't take it down now, it's going to take out the world. So, you know, everyone sat, so Korn felt better that, hey, he's now got many clans with him, and there are people following it, and there are warriors, and they're trying to figure out a plan. And so they devise the fact that this creature is heading into this mountain range and the great river, and it'll have to either cross at a certain place or go along this mountain range to get around if it still wants to go that way. So they decide they had been sending other people ahead of where the monster was to lay in wait. And from where they were, it was a shorter distance to go this way than to follow the monster. So they did. And they got there and they devised a plan where they were going to make a great pit and then cover it up and then go after the monster and have the monster run after them and fall into the great pit. So that's what they did. And anyway, so bottom line that happens is close up the thing because I want to close this. It's now 1 hour 58 minutes and 9 seconds. So by 2 hours, I'm going to finish the story. So what happens is, the monster has eaten all these people and creatures and things with great consumption, and so it's slowing down, and and they've gone over and they've dug the pit and they're figuring out how to distract it to bring it towards the pit, and they're getting ready for it, and they've dug this pit that is like as deep as the Grand Canyon, and and it's a hole. It's not, it's a hole. So once it goes down there, it's going to be tough for it to get out, and they've got everything to like push in and then throw fire into it and then cover it up. Anyway, so they get the great monster of mass consumption to follow, run after them. He falls into the pit, falls down, and then they start hitting him with gigantic stones that they roll on top of him. And all of a sudden, he starts, eliminated and throwing up. And because different parts of his body are getting hit by these big boulders. And out of the elimination come all of the people who have been, consumed by this monster. Many of them didn't let themselves get chewed up. They just went straight for the gullet, like, going into the whale's tummy. And so the people, because they're throwing branches because they're going to set it on fire, but they hear them climbing up. And Korn's looking down, and there's Plum, and she's like all covered with the insides of the monster. And so they don't set it on fire. They get everyone else, and they climb down to find if there's anyone left, and they bring them up. And pretty much they get everyone from all the different tribes who were swallowed by the monster. And that's when they throw more branches and more branches and more stones. And then they set it on fire, and it burns, and the smell is terrible. And then they fill the hole up and all the dirt they had, and it creates a big mountain. And if you go out to Lakota land, and you'll find where the big river is, and you will find where the mountain range is, you will find out there in the prairies, a mile or so from those two places, a big mountain. And that's where the creature of mass consumption is. Now, the moral of the story is manyfold. Um, the monster of mass consumption was created in the East from all the folks consuming everything and all of the waste products, all the smoke, all of the garbage, everything created that monster of. And that's what we're doing right now out in the oceans, all those islands, that they're little micro slivers of plastic in everything and everybody. This is the monster of mass consumption. And the only way that these tribes, individually, they couldn't stop this thing, As a single tribe, they couldn't stop this thing. But as a nation, together, right? And not quitting. Nobody says, oh, I'm giving up, No. They came up with a plan and they, pursued it and wrote their own script. And they defeated the monster mass consumption. And that's where we are now, gang. We have to come together as a nation, And we are a clan of the cadre, And we are here to bring forth, not experience the end of times, but bring forth new times. And we have to do it together. And I love you all. And, tomorrow I'll see what I'm doing. I have to find another, go to, I have to be on the other side of the county and to find a place to do another YouTube. But it might be in the morning-ish sometime. Anyway, I love you all. And let's see what you're saying. Daniel is your Denali. Denali. That's a beautiful name, Denali. So there are little dots next to each person? Yes, there are. Okay. Okay. Now I know how to do that. Thank you for all these shows, and I didn't figure that one out. See, I really don't know anything. I keep telling people at the beginning, don't believe me. I'm just a storyteller. Danielle. Okay. It's still a beautiful name. And so is Daniel. However you want to pronounce it. It's beautiful. So LOL, that means laugh out loud, right? I always thought it meant love, only love. Anyway. Okay, gang. I'll see you tomorrow. Or Sunday or Monday. Who knows, It's not like it's not easy to find a place that, I know where a number of places are, but it takes me 10, 20 miles to get there, blah, blah, blah. But I love talking to you guys. And I love telling you stories. And I'll catch you later. Till next time, have a good morning, good afternoon, good night. Be happy in whatever you're doing. And remember to meditate. Just breathe that 20% in, and that 30% out. Shut that squirrel up. Illuminate yourself with the prana. See your subconscious in your your imaginary mirror. And we'll try and do some more guided meditations tomorrow. Okay? Okay, guys. I love you. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, boop, boop. Where do I stream out here? Yep. We are all saved. We're all loved. We're all here. We're all writing our own scripts. Never to be at the hands of a bad playwright. So, hit that thumbs up. You liked it. Tell people to subscribe. And now I know about the 3 dots. Thanks for, took long enough for you guys to tell me that. So anyway, I love it. Okay, here we go. Boop-a-doop-doop-boo.